Today, we'll be using the Kiro CLI to perform a migration from Elasticsearch to OpenSearch on Amazon OpenSearch Service. We'll be using the Migration Assistant for Amazon OpenSearch Service to do this migration. And I've already deployed Migration Assistant in EKS in a new VPC. So this is a CloudFormation template that bootstraps our cluster. And from here, we can get started with Kiro. I'll navigate to our GitHub wiki. And here we have a page for using the Kiro assistant. And I'll go to our instructions that we have to download the Kiro agent and launch it. So you can see here, downloading our release for the agent and launching it. And from this point, I'll be using a terminal recording of a Cloud Shell interaction I had earlier today. I'll play this back at 5 times the speed just to make this a little more interesting since we are doing a sizable data migration. So here we have, again, Kiro starting up. I'll first check how many credits I've used on Kiro, and we'll be able to look afterwards to see how many credits we've used. So we're at 11.7 credits used. And I'll start the migration just by invoking the start prompt. So from this point, this is a glimpse of some of the steering docs and other utilities that we have provided in our agent to assist with this migration. So this is some guidance about how to do a migration, what information to retrieve, and how to use the migration assistant to achieve those goals. So it's going to make some calls to our cluster, um, our, our account in different regions. So it found 3 domains in US East 1, and it has found the EKS cluster, which has not been bootstrapped. So it went ahead and it is installing our migration assistant charts. So this is spinning up a couple EC2 instances for the various applications, as well as downloading those container images and launching them. And this is the environment that will be it'll be operating the migration from. So we can see here that we have our dashboards deployed um, and a few of our containers. So you can see here FluentBit, Argo Workflows, etc. And we have our migration console starting. So the agent knows to look for that. So I'll resume here and we'll see where it goes. So once it has the pod up, it knows it's ready to start this migration. So it gives us some details about the domains, and it asks us how we want to do the migration. So it asks us which source and target to use, any other restrictions. So I'm going to prompt that we can migrate from source to our OpenSearch 3 domain. So Elasticsearch 710 to OpenSearch 3 as fast as possible. And we know no other workflows are running, so we can take a fast snapshot. This is important because if you had other workloads running on your source cluster, you may not want to take as fast of a snapshot in order to limit the impact of the snapshot to potentially disk throttling limits. So we can pause here. We can look at what Kira is doing. So first, it submitted a workflow configuration. So this is a schema that we have that we'll give to our Argo workflow to perform this migration. So you can see as information about the source and target clusters, whether or not to have approval steps embedded in the workflow, auth config, snapshot config, and any other configs for metadata and document backfill. This is where transformations might be placed. In this case, a scaling limit or scaling this up is performed. And Kira here asks us for how to proceed. So it's found after querying the cluster, it's found 1 terabyte of primary data. It's found 2 terabytes, including the replica, the doc counts, and it's given us a bit of an estimate. So assuming that the snapshot can be 800 megabytes a second, it'll complete in a minute or so. And Backfill, it's giving a optimistic analysis based on the RFS workers. And so it's saying 5 to 10 minutes optimistic, and we'll see how long this actually takes. It's also given us a command here to change the cluster settings for Snapshot. In this case, we won't be able to set this way. Um, so one of the work in progress steps is I'm going to ask Kiro here to instead look at our workflow spec to set the snapshot speed. So this is a um, very much something that we're improving. So based on your feedback and others' feedbacks, we'll be improving this and providing the relevant steering information to Kiro. In this case, I'm prompting it to look at our schema and is correctly finding that to set our snapshot rate, it needs to set this max snapshot rate and this create snapshot config. Could have proceeded as is, but it might have just taken a bit longer for the snapshot. And from this point on, we can see create snapshot is pending in the Argo workflow. Um, and from this point on, we could close out of Kiro, close out of everything, close out of our Cloud Shell, and the migration would perform as we expected. The snapshot would happen since we have skip approvals on. Metadata migration and backfill would run, and we would get all of our historical data from that snapshot would be correctly migrated to our target cluster. And if any errors happened along the way, um, if they were recoverable, they'd be recovered. Otherwise, if they were any fatal errors would automatically be stopped and workflow would be stopped for us to investigate. But in this case, we're going to leverage Kiro as our agent operator. And we're going to ask it, or actually without even asking it, it's going to go and monitor the progress, give us some helpful information as we watch. So in this case, every 30 or so seconds, it's going to be querying the source cluster to get information about how the snapshot is proceeding. So even though this is not something that we have um, directly built into the Argo workflow yet, Kiro can go in and find this and provide this to us. And so we're working with this to add these features back into the migration assistant. So even if you weren't using Kiro, or you first used Kiro on this stage and you copied it to another stage, the configuration, you could get some of these valuable operator data points much easier. And with that, you can see Snapshot has finished and metadata is being migrated. So this is us opening the snapshot, looking at the index metadata and the templates. And now you can see that backfill has started. So we've migrated those metadata to the target cluster. There's default transformations that we apply based on the Elasticsearch or OpenSearch version and feature differences. And now backfill is running. So Kiro here is still monitoring how backfill is going. And I'm going to ask Kiro to give us an ETA. So Kiro here is now monitoring, and every minute it's going to give us a new ETA of when we'll be done with this migration. So we're migrating again, a terabyte of data, but we're doing it in parallel across a lot of nodes. So we can scale horizontally up to the number of shards on the source snapshot. In this case, we had pretty small shards, and Kiro decided, to scale up to 480 reindex from snapshot pods. So we're processing 480 shards in parallel, assuming our EKS cluster and environment can provide that infrastructure. That'll be what's provisioned and given to our reindex from snapshot workers to do the migration. And again, this shard parallelization approach allows us to have pretty fast rate for these migrations. One thing I can point out about our deployment in EKS is that we are leveraging EKS auto mode for some of the management of infrastructure. So in this case, we have auto mode provisioning EC2s, managing the AMIs, um, as well as deciding which infrastructure is most relevant. And with that, Kiro has determined that our source and target doc count match. We'll wait for the Argo workflow to run its subsequent check for completion. So once that runs, it'll continue to the next step, which is cleaning up the resources. And so here you can see that backfill is completed. Um, it was stopped, cleanup successful, and Kiro has given us a summary of everything. So we can see that snapshot took about 5 minutes, metadata 1 minute, backfill 12 minutes, end-to-end time of 33 minutes. And this is for, again, our 1 terabyte primary data migration, 1 terabyte compressed on Elasticsearch 710. gives us some information about performance and doc counts, and noting that the small difference between the clusters is just the system indices that are there. And we can check our usage, and we can see we have 28.3 credits used. So we have about 16 and a half Kiro credits that were used for this migration today. Going over to our dashboards, we can see our dashboards on our OS3 cluster. So we can look at our index rate across the time, searchable documents, and we're tracking SAS codes, utilization, as well as disk space. And with that, we've finished our migration. Please leave us feedback on our, you can cut us an issue to leave us feedback about this migration. And hopefully this will help you out for your next migration.